Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's get started. US President Donald Trump said he had been told the killings of protesters in Iran had been halted, adding that he would watch it and see about threatened military action. Offering no further details, Trump noted that the United States had yet to verify the claims. In an interview with Fox News, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi reportedly said there would be no hanging today or tomorrow. In recent days, Trump had repeatedly talked about coming to the aid of the Iranian people over the crackdown on protests. According to Norway-based Iran human rights NGO, at least 3,428 protesters have reportedly been killed and over 10,000 arrested in the crackdown on Iranian protesters. The US-based human rights activist news agency reported the death toll has very well risen over 2,600. Iranian state television has acknowledged that the country had a lot of martyrs but hasn't provided a specific figure. Iran has closed its airspace to all flights except international flights to and from Iran with permission. Flights tracking website Flight Radar 24 said the advisory was valid for a little more than 2 hours. Germany's Lufthansa Airlines said its flights would avoid Iranian and Iraqi airspace until further notice after US threats against Iran. It added that some flights could also be cancelled. Meanwhile, Indian airlines, including Air India and Indigo, have warned of delays due to closure of Iranian airspace. Israeli residents protested in the city of Holon in Israel in solidarity with the nationwide protests in Iran. Protesters chanted, waved flags and carried posters with slogans reading, "Don't be scared, we're all together," and "We the Jewish people stand with Iranians, free Iran." Iran's leadership is reportedly trying to quell the worst domestic unrest the Islamic Republic has ever faced. Iran and its Western foes have both described the unrest as the most violent since the 1979 Islamic Revolution that installed Iran's system of clerical rule. US Envoy Steve Witkoff has announced the start of Phase 2 of President Donald Trump's plan to end the Israel-Hamas war. The plan comprises a technocratic Palestinian government established in the territory. Under Phase 1, Hamas and Israel agreed a ceasefire in October, as well as a hostage prisoner exchange, a partial Israeli withdrawal and an aid surge. Witkoff said Phase 2 would see the reconstruction and full demilitarization of Gaza, including the disarmament of Hamas and other Palestinian groups. US President Donald Trump has reiterated his claim of America needing Greenland. He also claimed Denmark cannot be relied upon to protect the island, a semi-autonomous Danish territory. However, Trump hoped for a resolution. The foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland met with US Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio at the White House. The meeting was requested by the Danish minister to clear out misunderstandings. The two sides would form a committee to see if there was possible headway. Following a White House meeting between US, Danish and Greenlandic leaders, Greenland Deputy Prime Minister Mute Egede says more NATO troops are heading to Greenland. Speaking to the press, he added that the troops would be quote-unquote training. Earlier, France, Germany and Nordic countries said they would be taking part in a European military mission to the autonomous Danish territory, one which is coveted by US President Donald Trump. Republicans in US Senate thwarts a final vote on War Powers resolution seeking to restrict future military action in Venezuela. After Senators Hawley and Young switched sides, Vice President J.D. Vance cast the tie-breaking vote. This is dubbed a big win for President Trump and Senate GOP leaders who mounted a last-minute pressure campaign to avoid another rebuke of the administration's actions in Venezuela. US President Donald Trump held his first call with Venezuela's interim president, Delcy Rodriguez. Both leaders reportedly discussed oil, trade, and national security. He described Rodriguez as a terrific person, adding that the talks were mostly positive and showed tremendous progress. Rodriguez took over presidency of the Latin American nation on an interim basis earlier this month after the US military captured President Nicolas Maduro and flew him to the US to stand trial for drug charges. Supporters of ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and First Lady Cilia Flores gathered in huge numbers to hold protests. The demonstration, dubbed the Grand March of Workers, called for their release and repatriation following their capture by US forces on January 3rd. Protesters were seen waving banners and chanting slogans after accusing the US government of unjustly detaining the pair. Participants also performed with Venezuelan flags while voicing their opposition to what they described as US foreign intervention. Students in Minneapolis staged a protest outside Minnesota state capitol to denounce immigration and customs enforcement presence in the state and the killing of 37-year-old woman Renee Good last week. US President Donald Trump said he would cut off federal funding next month for any state that includes sanctuary cities, expanding his attacks on mostly Democratic-run cities following days of chaotic clashes on the streets of Minneapolis. Trump's declaration came amid escalating tensions in Minneapolis a week after a US immigration officer fatally shot Good, a US citizen, in her car. US President Donald Trump has taken a sweeping move to curb immigration. The State Department has frozen the process of granting visas from 75 countries. The decision targets immigrant visas only, not tourist or business visas. The latest move comes amid a broader immigration crackdown. The Trump administration is calling it a measure to protect American taxpayers. The State Department says more than 100,000 visas have been revoked since President Trump's return to office. The latest freeze on immigration will apply to several Asian, African, South American, and European countries. These include India's neighboring countries like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Myanmar. Additionally, Russia, Brazil, Iran, Nigeria, and Egypt have also made it into the list. From war-torn regions to one of the most poorest countries, US is closing gates for migrants from West Africa and West Asian countries like Iraq, Yemen, and Syrian. Visa applications for Cuban and Colombian migrants will also stand frozen. US President signed a law allowing whole milk to be served alongside low-fat and fat-free alternatives in American schools. The Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, which will expand milk options for nearly 30 million children who eat school meals, enables kids to have whole milk in schools for the first time in nearly 15 years. The act also enacts a long-standing priority of the dairy industry dating back to the administration of former President Barack Obama. The law is also aligned with the administration's Make America Healthy Again agenda. In what can be called NASA's first medical evacuation, an astronaut in need of medical attention departed the International Space Station along with 3 crewmates. The video footage shows the 4 returning crew members from the US, Russia, and Japan, namely Mike Finke, Zina Cardman, Oleg Platonov, and Kimia Yui, undocking from the ISS after 5 months in space. They are aiming for an early morning splashdown in the Pacific near San Diego aboard a SpaceX Dragon capsule. However, NASA officials reportedly refused to identify the astronaut who needed medical care last week. They also did not divulge the health concerns, stressing that it wasn't an emergency situation. The outgoing space station commander, Mike Finke, said earlier that the ailing astronaut is stable, safe, and well cared for. El Salvador's President Nayib Bukele inaugurated a new maximum security prison in nearby Costa Rica. This comes less than 3 weeks before Costa Ricans elect a new president in an election that has put crime front and center in campaigns. Bukele's government is helping build the prison, which Costa Rican President Rodrigo Chavez announced last year as part of a crackdown on violence fueled by drug trafficking. The new Costa Rican facility, named the Center for High Containment of Organized Crime, is located about 18 kilometers outside the capital, San Jose. It will have a capacity for 5,100 inmates and will increase Costa Rica's prison capacity by 40%. Peruvian transport workers held their first strike of the year to demand protection from rising crime. This is as President Jose Jerry announced new measures to combat lack of security on public transport. Passengers crammed inside the few buses that operated in the morning in Lima as many transport drivers' unions seconded the strike. No major incidents were reported. The president approached a group of protesters to inform them about the decrees to be implemented aimed at strengthening security on public transport. In the second phase of civic polls in Maharashtra, voting is underway today across 29 municipal corporations. Polling will continue until 5:30 p.m. with counting scheduled for January 16th. Crucial cities where civic polls will be held today include Mumbai, Thane, Kalyan, Dombivli, Nashik, Pune, to name a few. The election is seen as a chance for the Thackeray brothers, who have reunited after 20 years, to reclaim their heritage as heirs of Bala Saheb Thackeray. The Bharatiya Janata Party and the Shiv Sena are contesting the civic polls as allies under the Mahayuti banner, except in Pune, while the Nationalist Congress Party (NCP) has chosen to fight independently in most corporations. Sri Lanka has deferred its grade 6 education reform to 2027. This following a major textbook controversy involving an inappropriate web link. The cabinet says the reforms require public confidence before rollout. However, grade 1st reforms remain intact in 2026 as planned. The incident led to heightened tensions and public protests. The delay was triggered by an error in a newly printed grade 6 English textbook, a typographical mistake which redirects students to an adult website. In the wake of strong backlash from religious groups and various civil societies, telecom authorities have blocked the access to the website. Distribution of the textbooks was immediately halted as of now. Although the first school term of 2026 has begun, the distribution of new grade 6 textbooks was halted pending the review. Northern India is shivering through its toughest winter stretch yet. For the past 4 days, a relentless cold wave has paralyzed the Delhi NCR region, with temperatures in some pockets crashing to as low as 2 degrees Celsius. According to the IMD, the cold wave is set to abate from Friday as mercury is to rise. Delhi NCR woke up to a ghostly landscape this morning as a massive blanket of fog blanketed the city. Visibility dropped to near zero in several parts of the capital and its satellite cities, impacting a daily commute. On Wednesday, the minimum temperature in Gautam Budh Nagar plunged to 2 degrees, while Delhi's Safdarjung station recorded 3.8 degrees Celsius. The IMD has warned that very dense fog will continue to prevail in parts of Punjab, Haryana, Chandigarh, Delhi and Uttarakhand till tomorrow morning. Antarctica launches an ice sanctuary to preserve the cores of dying glaciers. Set up by the Ice Memory Foundation, an organization that aims to collect, save and manage ice cores from glaciers in danger of degradation or disappearance due to climate change. The icy storage facility contains vital information of the glaciers worldwide as rising temperatures accelerate glacier loss. Scientists are in a race against time to store the vital information contained inside ice cores before climate change melts them. Experts say the collection of the ice cores and creation of the sanctuary has been a complex operation but a vital one. The ongoing World Future Energy Summit in Abu Dhabi is bringing the global race for clean energy into sharp focus. Chinese renewable energy companies are positioning themselves at the center of this key transition. The three-day summit opened in the United Arab Emirates capital, gathering some 50,000 attendees from 114 countries and regions. The event is seen as a key global platform for discussing energy policies and new technologies. Data suggests China is playing a leading role in the race for cleaner energy, spending nearly as much in this field as the US and European Union combined. This while leading manufacturing across most clean and advanced energy supply chains. Hungarian firefighters braved freezing conditions to save a dog that fell into a frigid water and broken ice. This as extreme winter weather swept across the country. Rescue teams used specialized equipment, including a raft, to reach the animal, which had clung to the ice edge. Footage released by the National Disaster Management Directorate of the Interior Ministry shows firefighters and a diver quickly navigating the fragile ice before pulling the dog to safety onto their rescue raft. Once ashore, the animal was carried into an emergency vehicle where rescuers used towels and blankets to regulate its temperature. The dog was later transferred to a veterinarian for further care. Asian markets traded mixed as investors reacted to central bank moves and corporate news. South Korea's central bank held interest rates at 2.5%, citing weakness in the won. The Kospi rose more than 0.5%, while the won slipped to around 1,466 per dollar. Japan's Nikkei fell just over 1%, though topics edged higher. Australia's market gained nearly 0.5%. In China, Hong Kong stocks declined. Overnight, in the US, stocks fell for a second day as tech shares including Nvidia and Broadcom weighed on markets. Oil prices tumbled more than 2% in early Asian trading. This is after US President Donald Trump said violence in Iran's crackdown on nationwide protests was easing and indicated there were no plans for large-scale executions, reducing concern about imminent US military action and possible supply disruption. Brent crude fell about $1.67 to the mid-$60. Traders also weighed bearish signals from larger than expected US crude inventories and Venezuela's resumed exports, even as geopolitical risk remains elevated. Gold and silver extended record-breaking rallies as investors rushed into safe haven assets amid rising geopolitical and economic uncertainty. Spot gold climbed nearly 1% to a fresh all-time high above $4,640 an ounce, supported by expectations of Federal Reserve rate cuts and ongoing concerns over US political pressure on the central bank. Silver surged more than 5%, also hitting a record, as analysts pointed to strong demand and a structural bull market in precious metals. Tensions involving Iran, renewed debate over US global influence, and mixed US economic data added to market caution. Platinum and palladium also advanced, underscoring broad strength across metals. US e-commerce giant Amazon has said that it will appeal against a decision by an Italian court that reduced a major antitrust fine, saying it should not be charged at all. Italy's antitrust authority has cut the fine to $876.3 million from $1.31 billion after a court ruling linked to a 2021 case. The penalty was imposed over claims that Amazon abused its dominant position in e-commerce logistics in Italy. Amazon said it strongly disagrees with the decision and will continue to challenge it through legal channels. A coalition of women's groups, tech watchdogs, and progressive activists have urged Apple and Google to remove social media platform X and its chatbot Grok from their app stores. In open letters, the coalition accused the Elon Musk-owned apps of generating illegal content that violates both companies' terms of service. The campaign follows reports that Grok has produced sexually explicit, degrading and violent images of women and children. The campaign is backed by groups including Ultraviolet, the National Organization for Women, Move On and Parents Together Action. Sadio Mane fired Senegal into the final of the Africa Cup of Nations, ending Mohamed Salah's AFCON dream once again. The two-time African Footballer of the Year scored the only goal of the match in the 78th minute in the semi-final. The semi-final was a rematch of the 2021 AFCON final when Mane's Senegal emerged victorious after a penalty shootout. It marked the third time the Senegal forward has got the better of his former Liverpool teammate Mohamed Salah in a high-stakes international encounter. Salah remains without the AFCON trophy, having lost the final twice. Senegal will face host Morocco as they chase their second AFCON title. Morocco survived a nervy night in Rabat, edging past Nigeria 4-2 on penalties to book their place in the final. The result means the hosts have reached their first AFCON final since 2004. They will be now bidding to lift the trophy for the first time since 1976. The Atlas Lions will take on Senegal in the final in the capital on Sunday, while Nigeria face Egypt in the third place playoff a day earlier. Bangladesh players have threatened to boycott all forms of cricket unless board director M. Najmul Islam resigns following his explosive comments. Najmul claimed that no player would be compensated if they withdraw from the upcoming ICC Men's T20 World Cup in India and Sri Lanka. He argued that the BCB does not ask players to return the crores and crores of taka spent on them when they fail to perform. The remarks come amid ongoing fallout from the BCB's decision not to play matches in India at the upcoming T20 World Cup.